What is up, Planeswalkers? Theorix6 back with some more Magic the Gathering Arena. We're going to be doing the Black-Red new player deck, and this deck is Pirates. For those of you who don't want to look at the in-depth deck tech, feel free to check the description for the timestamps of the actual games. So the base Pirate deck is as such. The Black-Red deck is very much an aggro deck that is looking to close out the game using some sweet, sweet Pirates from Ixalan. The deck is pretty fine, however, I found that there were a few slots where I think it was a little misguided. So what we did is we essentially took out all control tools that couldn't also burn your opponent's face. So we took out the murders, we took out the Reaver Ambushes, and the 2 damage except to pirate to board wipe. And the reason we did this is because we want to kill our opponents. We don't care about their creatures. If we happen to care about their creatures, we have a couple of shocks as well as lightning strikes to deal with those. The reason we decided to go with this is we can also just use lightning strike to burn our opponent's face. We don't want something like murder sitting in our hand when we would rather be pushing damage. So that's why we're running 4 lightning strikes and 2 shocks instead of murders, Reaver Ambushes, things like that. We're also running a total of 10 1-drops because this is, more than any of the other decks we've done so far, an aggressive deck. We want to destroy our opponent as quickly as we can. And you can really see this with our curve. Our curve is 2.1. We're only running 21 lands because our plan is to just blitz our opponent. If we can't blitz our opponent and by like turn 5 or 6, we've probably lost, and it's better to cut our losses. This is absolutely not the type of deck I am used to playing, not the type of deck I prefer playing. I'm definitely more of a mid-range guy, but if you like just throwing things at your opponent, this is definitely the new player deck for you. So our split for 1-drops is Daring Buccaneers and Fanatical Firebrand. The reason for this is a guaranteed 1-mana 2/2. The chances of us not having a pirate in opening hand is essentially none, because we really should not be playing or keeping an opening hand that only has a single pirate. Fanatical Firebrand is able to get in for quick damage, as well as having the added ability of just going face if your opponent's at like 1 health or something late in the game and they have nothing but a bunch of blockers and we can't get through. If we top deck something like Fanatical Firebrand, we are able to just throw it at their face. It helps with our first strikers being able to make it so our opponent doesn't have great blocks, and it gets even better when you start adding some of the other rare cards, because a lot of those cards have first strike as well. So, and then Rigging Runner, you know, it has first strike, but it requires us to have attacked already, so it's more of a 2-drop. More often we'll be playing it as a 2-drop. If we have to, it is a fine 1-drop, just because of the fact that it does have first strike. So it's a little harder to get rid of than some of the other cards. But for our 2s, I'm actually going to talk about Goblin Trailblazer first. The reason we really like this card is because it has a menace, so it's very difficult for our opponent to efficiently block this. This means it can kind of just sneak through for about 4 points of damage before our opponent is finally willing to deal with it. We'll talk a little bit about Fathom Fleet Captain. This is a very good card because since this is a super aggro deck, we are going to run out of gas sometimes. This card mitigates that somewhat. Luckily, we did have it. That's a hideous art. Very, very burly man with ropes tied around, but he just allows us to keep getting value as long as we have one other non-token pirate. So very strong card. It is outclassed a little bit by some of the cards in the sideboard that I'll talk about in a bit, but it's a very strong card. If you do have more of these cards, I definitely suggest putting them in, probably for Kitesail Freebooter. Freebooter is in this deck because sometimes, like, it's not the most aggressive card. It does have flying, which is good. It does mean that it's going to be difficult for opponents to actually block it, but it just isn't the strongest of bodies. Now, that said, it is still a great card, and the reason it's a great card is because we can take anything from our opponent, typically going to be single target or board wipe removal, to make sure we're able to keep getting in there. Sometimes, though, our opponent is also on a creature deck, and we don't find anything with this, and then it's just kind of a mediocre 2-drop. That's why, since this also has Menace, it has a suit of evasion as well, I do kind of value Fathom Fleet over Kitesail. Dire Fleet Captain hits hard. I think I would have preferred having just a Lord like the Merfolks do. However, this card is strong. If you're able to curve it, you know, turn 1, Daring Buccaneer, into turn 2, Dire Fleet Captain, into turn 3, something with haste, it's very, very, very strong. Yeah, I mean, this card can attack easily for 4/4, and if you have Dire Fleet Neckbreaker, it's easily attacking for 5 and 6 damage. Lightning Strike we've already discussed, very strong burn spell. Forerunner of the Coalition is another one similar to Fanatical Firebrand that just kind of helps you with reach. This, again, is weaker than some of the cards in the sideboard that we can talk about. However, it is an uncommon, so it does help and doesn't break the bank. You're able to search for any pirate. Almost always you're going to be getting Direfleet and Neckbreaker because that is like the curve topper. That's like the premier card. However, what you can do is just keep running back Forerunners of the Coalition. If your opponent has set up essentially a barricade of creatures that maybe they can't threaten your life, but you also just can't get through, you're able to chain Forerunner of the Coalitions turn after turn and make it so each additional Forerunner is making your opponent lose more and more life. So that's just another way to kind of get reach on your opponent. It does mean that you're going to only be drawing those for a couple of turns, which theoretically you could be stopping yourself from drawing something like Lightning Strike, something like Direfleet Neckbreaker. But the trade-off is pretty much worth it because you're guaranteed to get that value. We're running one Captain Lannery Storm because the deck came with it. Lannery is a good card. She is a 2/2 for haste that can attack for 3 on the first turn because you can sack the treasure immediately. Very strong card. I definitely suggest crafting this probably as the first rare craft. I don't think any of the other rares are even comparable to the ability to just have Lannery just bash your opponent in really quickly. Fell's Flagship. It's not an awful card, but I don't think it's a great card either. It's very rare you're going to be using this. Where you'll see it most is in the later game when you play something like Goblin Trailblazer or something, and your opponent just like has 2 really large blockers that just kind of make Goblin Trailblazer garbage, or something like Daring Buccaneer or something like that. Since this does give your pirates a buff, it means your 2 power pirates can crew this. Unfortunately, it does mean it's only attacking for 3 anyway, but if you're able to get through, you can make them discard. I'm not a giant fan of this card because it does kind of act a lot of the time as a overcosted Anthem that doesn't really do much. This is definitely one of those areas where you probably would rather have something like Lannery. Captivating Crew. It's in the deck because it started in the deck. It helps against, since this is a budget deck, it does help against those other budget decks that are maybe playing things that are higher on the curve, a little bit higher value, and you can just steal something of theirs and try to kill them with it. It's not great. I would, once you start making the deck more optimized, definitely cut this card. It's not fantastic. Direfleet Neckbreaker. This card is real good. It works as soon as you play it. It doesn't have to be attacking itself. So if you curve out, and this is the plan, right? Curve out a 2-mana 1/1, or a 2-power 1/1, hopefully a 2-power 2/2, or 2-drop, gosh. 2-power 3-drop into this. You're attacking for a ton of damage on turn 4 and by turn 4. And then you should be able to finish your opponent off with a Lightning Strike and a Shock or something. This card is incredibly strong. It's unfortunate that it has such low toughness. It's likely not going to survive very long against any other creature decks. But the fact that it enters play and immediately you get that bonus is very, very valuable. Even if you just have 2 creatures, that's essentially 4 power worth of haste, and it's very strong. Unlike a lot of the other decks, not a ton of random stuff to talk about with this one. It's very, very straightforward, and it's definitely not the type of deck I'm used to playing, so if I make like terrible sequencing errors, I apologize. But we actually cut some interesting stuff. We cut the dual lands that they had in here. They had the red-black enters tapped lands, and the reason we did this is we don't want any of our lands entering tapped. It is better for us to just not run those cards and run the very small risk of not having black mana, because essentially that's what we would miss. It's much more efficient to do that than to have lands that enter tapped, because we just want to be blazing fast. And then we'll talk a little bit about the stuff on the sideboard. Essentially, these are just some rare options that might make the deck better. If you want to do a little bit more of a mid-range style, Direfleet Poisoner is very good. It's very helpful in trading up against a lot of the larger, especially green decks. Direfleet Daredevil is relatively good against the more control-y decks that have spells that can get you a little bit of value. You know, if you cast this and get something like a Glimmer of Genius from your control opponent, it can be very helpful in restocking your hand. The fact that it has First Strike also works really well with Fanatical Firebrand, works really well with things like Flagship and Direfleet Neckbreaker. Carrie Zev, very similarly, also has First Strike. She has a nice 3 health, or 3 toughness, so it's very difficult for your opponents to get rid of her with something like Shock. Trades very well, and she attacks for 3, which is fantastic, right? She's a 2-mana, attacks for 3. Unfortunately, she's legendary, which does sometimes mean you're going to draw dead, but it's not going to happen too often. Ruin Raider is kind of similar to Forerunner of the Coalition in that Forerunner's job is to mainly keep you on gas. kind of act as an inevitability, and Ruin Raider does essentially. It just makes sure you can stay in the game by drawing cards. I took out Angrath. That might sound weird. I started trimming lands from this deck like slowly by slowly. It started out as 23, and then I trimmed to 22, kept Angrath, and I was just finding that I was flooding out too often. Even though I was flooding out, I like never saw Angrath because it was one of. I wanted to go down to 21 lands, but you really shouldn't be playing five-mana cards in a 21 land deck. So I decided I'm going to cut Angrath. If you guys really want to play Angrath, that's fair. I would suggest not cutting down to 21 if you do that, just because it's relatively likely that you're not going to be able to play Angrath. It's going to be a dead card in your hand. So other than that, not much to say about the deck. It's very straightforward, and it's time to go pillaging, shall we? Going up against Pop 64. It was way too difficult to read that. We're going first. That is always good to see. And we have a decent hand. We don't have 3 mana, but should be fine. We have a sweet 1-drop, and we can shock some blockers if we need to. Alright, gonna go ahead and lead with this and get in some sweet early damage. Let's see what our opponent is on as I check OBS to make sure it's fine. Ooh, looks like they're on probably, and we got our land, so looks like they're probably going to be on red-white enchantments and equipments. So I assume we're going to see things like Valduk, things like Danitha, things like that guy, Champion of Flame. But we have some sweet shocks here. So we're definitely going to go ahead and shock. End of turn just to keep him off that. Go by. Here I actually like the idea of Kitesail. So what I want, though, is I want to use Forerunner of the Coalition to get my Neckbreakers. So I think it's very good here to Kitesail first, see what my opponent is on, and I can hold up a shock for something like Danitha or another one of their creatures. So I think I'm going to go with that. And we do this before we attack just to make sure we want to. That's fantastic. They have 2 Danithas. I can go and take this card from them. They don't have any removal right now. Fantastic. And what we could do is, honestly, we could even Forerunner for another Firebrand so that we can guarantee Danitha dies. And we're going to go and kill this one. Yeah. And this is why we're running these instead of other removal. And we did get a land, which is fantastic. That does mean that if we want... And we're actually going to pretend that we're still on shock. So there are a few different things we can do here. We can get another Fanatical Firebrand to make sure they stay off Danitha. Or we could go get a Neckbreaker. I'm honestly not sure which one is better. I really like Neckbreaker. The thing is, Danitha has First Strike. I can get another. Oh, you know what? This actually gives bonus to toughness, so Danitha's going to be a 3/3 no matter what. So it's actually better to just go ahead and get the Neckbreaker. Unfortunately, for a while, we're going to only be able to attack with the Kitesail Freebooter in the air, because Danitha has First Strike. So yeah, they're going to play Danitha, equip it, yep. So unfortunately, we do know that we're not going to be drawing something like a Lightning Strike. That is, as I said in the DeckTech, something that is going to happen from time to time. But this is fine. Sure. And we can only really attack with this, because the First Strike means that these will just die. That said, Danitha is only 1 creature for now. So, ooh, that's pretty bad. The reason that's bad... Oh, that's not what I was expecting. I was expecting them to get rid of this. That's fine. And Danitha, I think, has a Vigilance too, yeah. So Danitha can kind of just attack here with words that I don't know. Got another Kitesail, but unfortunately I don't think it's going to do much. My opponent could have like exactly another Ansar's Wings, which would be unfortunate, but I think I'm going to run out. I think it's valuable to run out the Forerunner. Yeah, I think it's valuable to run out the Forerunner. Try to drain them. At this point, it's going to be very difficult to actually get through this card, and I just want to make sure. Yeah, there aren't really any other creatures that I can use here. I do still want to attack with the Kitesail because I can. But if my opponent does have an Onsar's Wings, that's probably just game for us. Sure, that is fine. Dauntless, interesting. Looks like, yeah, on Danitha. I mean, I can kill either of these at any point. If I wanted to, I could even block and then before damage, sacrifice. That does save them. That does like make it so they can't deal damage this turn. Unfortunately, I can't like quadruple block. I think I'm fine taking a little bit more damage here. I do have that option open to me. But unfortunately, our opponent has life gain, right? With this deck, you're going to be hard-pressed to win against life gain. But we still can get in with our Freebooter. We essentially are never going to block with this just because we don't want them getting Onsar's Wings back. Here, we could, if we really needed to, triple block Danitha. And then kill this before they could do anything. But I think what I'm going to do is block here and sag. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Yeah, I think I'm going to block here. And then sack and kill that. That way, if I do top deck something like Lightning Strike, I will be able to just get rid of it. Sure. Not a Lightning Strike, unfortunately. This Kitesail Freebooter essentially does nothing. Except it attacks in the air. So, it attacks in the air and deals more damage. Let's see. Is it good to attack with all of these here? We definitely want to attack with this. Right, that's 3 damage. This is 4 damage. One of them dies easily. Either they go to 1. Oh, right. We actually don't, because Danitha would kill 1 for first strike, and we'd actually get no value. We would lose a creature. So, no, we just attack in the air. They attack us back. Hopefully they don't have any more power buffing stuff. No blocks. We are still trying to race them. Okay, Goblin Trailblazer is actually not terrible. They only have 3. This is first strike, so they would... So I essentially can't attack with this because this is first strike, right? So this is the correct block for my opponent, and we're going to assume that our opponent's going to make their correct block. So we attack with, let's say we attack with all of them. They block here. Before we get a chance to deal damage, all of these are going to lose that power buff. So we don't actually attack with this, which means we only attack with these. And that should be my opponent dead, actually. Because that's 6 damage from here, and then the Forerunner should deal 2 more damage. As I said during the deck tech, this helps us get through for those last points. Very clutch victory. Danitha was very difficult to fight through, but when your deck has reach, right, it's very helpful. When you're playing an aggro deck, you want to make sure you have some contingency for your opponent just stabilizing. Going against West Coast Kella. I assume their favorite rapper is Tupac. Going second. Unfortunate. The aggro deck usually wants to go first. But not too bad as long as we have a good opener. This is an okay opener. It's not fantastic. Since we're drawing, we're more likely to get the turn 2 black mana. As opposed to if we're going. I guess we're equally as likely. But we do have at least 3 cards to play, right? So this hand is keepable at the very least. Elf. Honestly, we might shock the elf turn 1. I'm really inclined to shock the elf turn 1. Them being able to get down a 3-drop so quickly can really just spell disaster if it's a Steel Leaf. If it's a Steel Leaf champion. They also could be like using this elf as a crutch. I think the correct decision is to do this. As I've said, I don't play linear aggro. I could be incredibly wrong. But our opponent didn't have a thing. I'm gonna go ahead and reveal the Forerunner. I need to make sure I know which one is revealed. It's that one. Yeah, hopefully they were using that elf as a crutch. Interesting. If I don't draw a thing, I can still kill that. So gain 2 life. Kind of lame, but ooh, hello. I'm trying to decide if I would like to offer the trade. I don't even really want to play Forerunner just yet because I want to be able to play this sooner. Actually, what I might do is I might Forerunner for a 1-drop, a red 1-drop. So then next turn, I'm guaranteed to play two creatures, Dire Fleet as well as the 1-drop. I showed my opponent this one, so I should play this one. I'll offer the trade. See if our opponent decides to take it. They don't? Okay. I assume it's because my opponent's going to attack and eat my shock, which will make this larger, but I have a lightning strike to deal with that, so I don't mind at all. Want to use this one because our opponent saw this one. Hopefully Arena gives us more information about that in the future. And we are just going to get a 1-drop. Do I want Rigging Runner? I'm probably not going to attack guaranteed, so I think Daring Buccaneer is just a safer choice. Rigging Runner is technically better, but my opponent isn't guaranteed. Right, I'm not guaranteed to be able to attack next turn. So, unfortunately, my opponent is probably going to be able to fight, which is not good. My opponent will likely end up fighting Dire Fleet Captain. And that would be no good. But we sequence it like this in hopes that our opponent just attacks us. We can draw land, play a Dire Fleet, and just murder the crap out of them. The problem is, yeah, they're... Oh, okay. Not what I expected. That said, Ripjaw Raptor still hurts. Ow. We did get a land, which means we can Dire Fleet. The question is, do we? Do we attack? Let's see, this would be +2, 3, 4, 5. So this would be 7, and it just gets eaten here. We would get through for, each of these are 4, so 12, putting them at 15. I forgot about this card, darn. That means we're only going to get through for 8, putting them to 9. We kill this. So what ends up happening is we lose these 2 cards, and we don't have the Lightning Strike to be able to kill this. So I think we actually just pass the turn, as much as I hate saying that. Right, because if we were able to, we would be able to use Lightning Strike on the Gigantosaurus, because this would be at 7, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so we'd be able to Lightning Strike and at least trade there. The problem with that is our opponent is probably just going to be able to eat one of our cards with a fight card. It's possible I should have just made that attack and just accepted some of the losses, but okay. It's not awful. Hit me. I would like you to hit me. Do I chump? My opponent absolutely could have something like Titanic Growth here. But I don't think I want to play not to lose. I think I want to play to win. And I think in order to do that, I think I have to just say no blocks. Opponent only has 1 card in hand. Has only seen 12 cards in the deck. Yeah. So I made that decision hoping that I'm able to just kill them here. So this and this gets blocked. And this gets blocked. Don't deal a ton of damage. Well, let's see, these are 4 damage, so this probably blocks here. Well, if they do that, stuff's gonna die, so I at least have this to chump. Get damage here. Yeah, let's just stack. I think it might be more valuable just to take out the Death Gorger. Get through for 12. That chumps. Is that true? So if I do this, this chumps here. This probably blocks this. And they take 13. Otherwise, they get to do this and chump here, and then they only take 9. I play 1 blocker, and they have too many things that live. I'm gonna let them decide. I don't think I am able to win this. Green typically has a decent time against red because their creatures are very cheap and are large, so they're able to deploy roadblocks very quickly. So let's see what my opponent decides to do. They might make bad blocking decisions here. For example, the Forerunner Coalition should be prioritized over Daring Buccaneer. An argument could be made that I should have played my other Daring Buccaneer beforehand, but opponent is really going in the tank about how they would like to approach this. So my assumption is that they should chump here and then use their X5s to block 2 of these and only take 9 damage. That way they save essentially all their creatures, right? I wouldn't be able to take care of both of these. But our opponent may have disconnected, which would be a win for me. Obviously, as you guys can see, this is a losing position, right? I'm essentially doing a Hail Mary. Unless I cut out? No, I mean, it looks like everything's fine. Don't know what that's all about. I mean, I'll take a win. A win is a win. But I hope you guys can recognize that this is not a great position for us. But this type of matchup is very difficult. Green, as you can see, right? A decent size 3-drop, a very good 4-drop, a fantastic 5-drop, and another decent size 3-drop. It just lines up very well with our creatures. And yeah, it looks like our opponent disconnected. Very unfortunate, but I'll take the win. While they're gone, let's see if there actually would have been a better play since we're waiting anyway. I could have played Forerunner into another Dire Fleet and then played Daring Buccaneer. I would have had to chump pretty much everywhere though. Right? I would have lost 4 creatures. Well, if they attacked with all of them, right? Then I would have lost 4 creatures, but I'd have creatures to spare. So actually, theoretically, playing the conservative route might have helped us. Since our opponent does only have one card in hand, if we had played Forerunner, they would have been lost 1. Then we played Daring Buccaneer, they would have lost 2 total, so they would have lost 3, so they'd be at 14. We would have gotten another Dire Fleet Neckbreaker. If they attacked with all 4 creatures, we would have chumped with the 3 Daring Buccaneers and probably a single Forerunner. And we would have had 1 Forerunner, a Neckbreaker, and a Captain. And let's say they are able to play a single creature. They would be on 14. Unfortunately, we probably wouldn't have won from that position either, but it's potentially the better position. We won that game, but we really didn't. That was pretty much a loss. Yeah, I don't need to make these games go super long. You guys, this is a super straightforward deck, and I want to make sure I don't make too many mistakes because it is, as I said 1,000 times, not a type of deck that I'm used to playing. So let's see what we get from our packs here. Desecrated Tomb, fun. Wizards posted an interesting thing. A Dragons thing. Posted an interesting little tweet on their Twitter page that essentially was teasing something from 9/19 for September 19th. I don't know if they're gonna do the wipe early. I don't know if they're gonna just give us the information on 9/19. It was an image of Vivian Reed's bow, the arc bow. I'm very curious as to what's going on with that. I'm hoping that they don't wipe things at that point yet, or at least if they do, that the new player decks don't change, because I'm not done yet. But yeah, I will be completing this hopefully before wipe occurs, and hopefully they still don't change them just so, I mean, it looks like they tried to make them rotation proof, so hopefully they don't change them just so that they stick around for at least a little bit while longer. I really do hope you guys appreciate this video. It is definitely not a type of deck I'm used to doing. Hopefully new players can see that a red-black aggro strategy is a good thing to start with, because they are really fast games. Yeah. I would like to thank Easy Mode, Chris, DizzyFam, Daniel, Flowerchild, Chow083 for supporting me on Patreon. I'm able to buy packs with their sweet support and keep the decks coming. If you would like to join them in supporting me, you can find a link to the Patreon in the description below, and one of the links should also just be showing up at the end of the video during the end card. Anyway, hope you guys liked it. If you did, go and tap that like button, add a subscription to your mana pool, and cast a comment to the comment section down below. And until next time, all will be one.